Are we doomed to a life of endless chaos, forever caught in a cycle of suffering and meaninglessness? Or is there a way to break free, to embrace the madness and find true liberation? Welcome to today's exploration into one of the most profound and unsettling philosophies of the 20th century. We'll dive into the mind of Albert Caraco, the philosopher who challenged everything we thought we knew about life, society, and the search for meaning. If you're ready to have your world turned upside down, you've come to the right place. Caraco's views on life and chaos go far beyond what most philosophers have ever dared to explore. His ideas about the futility of human existence, the inevitability of chaos, and the illusions we create to cope with it will make you question everything you thought was stable and safe in your own life. This is not just another philosophy lecture, this is a journey into the heart of human suffering and the paradox of searching for meaning in a world that refuses to give it to us. So, grab your seat, because the more we peel back the layers of Caraco's worldview, the deeper we go into a reality where nothing is as it seems. But before we dive into the chaos, I need to ask you something. Do you enjoy exploring deep, thought-provoking content like this? If you do, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with anyone who's ready to confront the uncomfortable truths about our existence. And if you really want to support the channel and help us bring more content like this to life, don't forget to click the super thanks button below. Your contribution goes a long way in helping us reach more minds like yours. Alright, let's dive deep into the paradoxical world of Albert Caraco's philosophy. Buckle up, this journey is not for the faint-hearted. Albert Caraco, a French philosopher born in 1919, occupies a unique and somewhat overlooked place in the landscape of 20th century existential thought. His writings, marked by a profound sense of despair and disillusionment, reflect a deep engagement with the chaos that permeates human existence. Caraco's life was as much shaped by historical events as by his personal circumstances, experiencing the tumult of war, the devastation of displacement, and the lingering effects of social upheaval. These experiences are not only integral to understanding his philosophy, but also provide the backdrop to the two central themes in his work: life and chaos. Caraco was born in Istanbul, Turkey, into a family of Jewish origin, which already positioned him at the crossroads of cultural and existential struggles. His early life was marked by political instability and the disintegration of the old world order. The rise of fascism, the horrors of World War II, and his subsequent immigration to France shaped his worldview in a way that would deeply influence his philosophical outlook. Living through the collapse of European civilization during and after the war, Caraco came to see the world not as a place of inherent meaning, but as one governed by a pervasive, unrelenting chaos. At the heart of Caraco's philosophy is the idea that human existence is inherently entangled in a battle with chaos. For him, life is not a journey toward fulfillment or progress, but a succession of random events, a series of moments that defy any coherent narrative or sense of purpose. This perspective aligns him with existential thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre, Albert Camus, and Friedrich Nietzsche, who also grappled with the absurdity and meaninglessness of life. However, where these philosophers often sought ways to find meaning despite the absurd, Caraco took a darker view, one that emphasized the futility of seeking meaning in a world that, to him, was indifferent to human desires or struggles. In this context, life for Caraco is not something to be cherished or celebrated. Instead, it is a chaotic force that drags individuals through pain, suffering, and ultimately, death. He rejected traditional notions of happiness and self-fulfillment, which were often seen as the goals of human existence. Life, as he saw it, was not something to improve or make sense of, but rather something to endure. His view of life is steeped in nihilism, where the idea of any lasting meaning is at best an illusion and at worst a tragic misdirection. According to Caraco, there is no transcendence, no higher purpose, no cosmic plan. Life simply unfolds in a series of random, often violent, and ultimately meaningless events. Yet, it is chaos that stands as Caraco's central philosophical concern. For him, chaos is not an external force or a transient condition. but rather a defining characteristic of existence itself. Chaos is the natural state of the universe, and human efforts to impose order, structure, or meaning are futile. In his view, civilization, religion, politics, and even individual desires are all attempts to create the illusion of order in an otherwise chaotic world. But these efforts, far from mitigating chaos, only amplify it. Institutions such as religion and politics, which are designed to stabilize society and provide meaning, often become the very instruments that perpetuate suffering, conflict, and destruction. Caraco's critique of civilization is particularly sharp. While many philosophers, from Plato to Hegel, have seen civilization as a necessary evolution of human society, Caraco viewed it with suspicion and disdain. He believed that civilization, through its institutions, its moral codes, and its ideals, creates a false sense of stability, which only serves to mask the inherent chaos of the world. For example, religious systems, while purportedly offering salvation and meaning, often serve to control and manipulate individuals, leading to greater alienation and suffering. Similarly, political systems, meant to bring peace and prosperity, tend to create cycles of violence, oppression, and war. For Caraco, these institutions do not represent progress or enlightenment. Rather, they are a form of denial, a collective attempt to suppress the recognition of chaos and the inevitability of suffering. The paradox at the core of Caraco's philosophy lies in this relationship between life and chaos. On the one hand, human beings, through civilization and culture, strive to bring order to their existence, to create systems that provide meaning, security, and purpose. On the other hand, every attempt to control the chaos only deepens it. This dynamic becomes especially apparent when one examines the historical trajectory of human civilization. Wars, revolutions, economic crashes, and environmental disasters, events that seem to mark the failure of human civilization, are not anomalies or mistakes, but rather the natural outcomes of a system that is inherently flawed, chaotic, and doomed to collapse. Caraco's philosophical framework offers a chilling but thought-provoking insight into the nature of existence. In his view, chaos is inescapable, and any effort to impose order is doomed to fail. Yet, this does not lead him to a position of despair or resignation. Rather, Caraco's philosophy invites us to confront the chaos directly, to recognize it for what it is, and to live with the understanding that the search for meaning is itself a form of escape from the harsh reality of existence. In a sense, Caraco challenges us to stop pretending that we can tame life, that we can make it predictable or meaningful, and instead to embrace its inherent disorder. This existential confrontation with chaos, according to Caraco, is where the true philosophical value lies. For him, it is only by recognizing the futility of human efforts to impose order that we can begin to understand the world in its raw, unvarnished form. This recognition, while painful and unsettling, opens the door to a deeper engagement with life, rather than retreating into illusions or fantasies. Caraco urges us to face the chaos head-on, to accept it as a fundamental aspect of our existence. This acceptance, paradoxically, offers a form of liberation not from the chaos itself, but from our desire to escape it. In conclusion, Caraco's exploration of life and chaos challenges us to reconsider how we understand the human condition. His philosophy does not offer easy answers or comforting illusions, but instead forces us to confront the profound disorder that underlies our lives. Through his writings, we are encouraged to question the narratives we create to make sense of our existence, and to acknowledge that chaos is not an external force to be conquered, but an internal truth to be embraced. By confronting the chaos within, we may find a path to a more authentic and profound understanding of what it means to be human. Albert Caraco's philosophical perspective on life challenges conventional ideas about human existence, providing a deeply unsettling view of the world as a place of inherent suffering and meaninglessness. Caraco saw life not as a gift or a journey toward fulfillment, but as a harsh, unavoidable imposition and experience that we must endure, despite its utter lack of meaning. In his writings, Caraco highlights the paradox of human existence. that life, which we cling to and seek to preserve, is inherently meaningless. And yet we continue to fight against this reality by imposing artificial systems of meaning. These systems, whether they be religion, family, or political structures, are not seen by Caraco as sources of genuine meaning, but as illusions designed to distract us from the deep existential void that defines human life. The concept of life as an imposition is central to Caraco's view. Unlike thinkers who see life as an opportunity for growth, development, or enlightenment, Caraco insists that human existence is a relentless and involuntary struggle. He contends that we are thrust into a world filled with suffering and absurdity, a world that offers no clear purpose or justification for our suffering. This stark perspective can be seen as a rejection of the traditional ideals of progress and happiness that are central to much of Western thought. Life, as Caraco sees it, is not a gift but a burden, and the pursuit of meaning in such a world is ultimately futile. In Caraco's worldview, the human condition is defined by an unrelenting quest to find meaning in a world that is indifferent to our desires or needs. We seek meaning, not because it exists inherently in life, but because we cannot bear the thought of facing the existential void that lies beneath our daily routines. Caraco draws attention to the way that human beings have constructed elaborate systems such as religion, family, and political ideologies precisely to create a semblance of order and meaning in a chaotic world. Yet, these systems are not solutions to life's fundamental problem, but merely illusions, distractions that allow us to avoid confronting the true nature of our existence. Caraco's views on society's attempts to create meaning parallel the existential philosophy of figures like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus. Both Sartre and Camus, like Caraco, rejected the idea of a predefined meaning or purpose to human life. Sartre famously argued that existence precedes essence, meaning that humans are born into the world without any inherent purpose or direction, and must then define themselves through their actions. In contrast, Camus emphasized the absurdity of life and the human desire for meaning in a universe that offers none, famously writing about the myth of Sisyphus as a metaphor for the human condition. Sisyphus, condemned to roll a boulder up a hill only for it to roll back down again, represents the absurdity of human striving in endless pursuit of something unattainable. Caraco's view aligns with Camus in many ways, particularly in his bleak assessment of human efforts to find meaning in life. However, Caraco extends this view further by emphasizing the complete futility of these efforts. While Camus spoke of the possibility of embracing the absurdity of life and finding meaning through our response to it, Caraco was more resigned to the idea that no such redemption exists. For Caraco, the search for meaning is not only futile, but also ultimately harmful. By clinging to illusions of purpose or hope, humans only compound their suffering, continuing a cycle of self-deception that keeps them from confronting the inherent meaninglessness of existence. One of the central elements of Caraco's philosophy is the rejection of stability in human existence. While many thinkers, from ancient philosophers to modern intellectuals, have posited that human life is capable of achieving a certain degree of stability or fulfillment, Caraco vehemently disagrees. He saw life as an unpredictable force, characterized by constant upheaval and chaos. His perspective echoes themes found in existentialist literature, where the stability we seek is always temporary, and any illusion of permanence is ultimately shattered. Caraco's pessimism about the possibility of stability or permanence in human life reflects a deep skepticism about the ability of humans to control their own destiny or find lasting peace. Caraco's rejection of stability ties into his view of life as an ongoing struggle. For him, life is not a journey toward a fixed end or an eventual sense of fulfillment. Instead, it is a series of random and chaotic events that force us to confront the absurdity of our existence. The constant effort to impose order, meaning, or progress upon this chaotic state is, in Caraco's view, not only futile but damaging. It prevents us from seeing life for what it truly is, a temporary and often painful existence that, while filled with fleeting moments of joy, will ultimately end in suffering and death. The search for meaning, therefore, becomes a trap that keeps us locked in a cycle of desire, frustration, and despair. One way to better understand Caraco's view of life as a struggle for meaning is to consider the role of modern society in shaping our existential anxieties. In the contemporary world, there is a constant push toward progress and self-improvement. People are taught to strive for success, wealth, and personal fulfillment, and society often promises that these goals will bring happiness and meaning. However, Caraco would argue that this drive for progress is not a solution to the existential problem but a continuation of the illusion that life can be fixed or made meaningful. The relentless pursuit of success and happiness, Caraco might say, only serves to perpetuate the existential void by creating new forms of frustration and alienation. Instead of offering meaning, the pursuit of these goals only deepens our sense of emptiness. In this light, Caraco's critique of modern life parallels the insights of other existential thinkers, who have observed that contemporary society tends to distract individuals from confronting the real challenges of existence. The rise of consumerism, the constant bombardment of information, and the emphasis on superficial achievements all serve to obscure the deeper questions about life and death that Caraco believes we must face. For Caraco, modern society's obsession with progress and stability is not only misguided but dangerous. By encouraging individuals to focus on external goals, society prevents them from recognizing the internal struggle that defines the human condition. For Caraco, the meaninglessness of life is not something to be overcome or solved. It is a fundamental truth that, once accepted, can provide a deeper understanding of what it means to be human. Life's lack of inherent meaning does not, in Caraco's view, imply that life is devoid of value or purpose. Rather, it suggests that meaning is something that each individual must create for themselves. However, this meaning is not found through societal systems, religious beliefs, or political ideologies. Instead, it is found through an honest confrontation with the chaos of existence. The process of acknowledging life's meaninglessness, far from leading to despair, opens up the possibility for a more authentic existence, one that is not based on false promises or illusions. Caraco's philosophy invites us to reconsider the ways in which we seek meaning in our lives. It challenges us to examine the systems, beliefs, and institutions that we use to provide structure and purpose to our existence, asking whether these things are genuinely fulfilling or merely distractions from the deeper truths about life. In a world that often seems chaotic and pointless, Caraco's message is clear. Meaning is not something that is given to us, but something that we must confront, accept, and ultimately create for ourselves. Albert Caraco's perspective on chaos is deeply rooted in his existential philosophy, seeing it not simply as a lack of order or disruption, but as the fundamental, inescapable nature of human existence and the universe itself. For Caraco, chaos is not an anomaly or a temporary disruption that can be controlled or subdued. Rather, it is a constant, an essential aspect of life. This view sets him apart from many thinkers who tend to associate chaos with disorder or breakdown. In Caraco's worldview, chaos is not something to be feared or resisted, but rather something that must be acknowledged as an intrinsic part of our experience in the world. In his writings, Caraco suggests that chaos is not an external force that is imposed on human beings, but a reflection of the internal, existential condition of humanity. Life, in his view, is defined by a profound sense of instability, uncertainty, and confusion. As human beings, we are constantly confronted by the chaotic nature of existence, a chaos that exists not only in the external world, but also within ourselves. This internal chaos manifests in our emotions, thoughts, and desires, creating a continuous internal struggle that is at the heart of the human condition. Whether through anxiety, fear, or disillusionment, we experience chaos as a reaction to the underlying meaninglessness of existence. For Caraco, the recognition of this chaos is a crucial step in understanding the nature of life. It is not merely a philosophical concept, but a lived reality. The constant turmoil and disorder that we face daily, whether through war, political unrest, social upheaval, or personal crisis, are all manifestations of this larger, cosmic chaos. To deny it or attempt to suppress it is. According to Caraco, to live in a state of denial, avoiding the very essence of what it means to exist, the more we attempt to organize, control, or suppress the chaos of life through artificial systems, whether they be political, religious, or social, the more we amplify its effects. Caraco's ideas on chaos are deeply connected to his broader view of existence as a whole. His notion of chaos challenges the conventional optimism of modern civilization, which often seeks to frame human life in terms of progress, stability, and order. Caraco, however, dismisses these notions as mere illusions designed to comfort us in the face of an otherwise chaotic world. In his eyes, humanity's attempts to impose order, whether through systems of law, political structures, or religious dogma, are futile, for they do not address the deeper, existential chaos that underlies our existence. Instead of bringing peace, these systems often serve to exacerbate chaos, reinforcing the illusion that order is possible when, in fact, it is an unattainable ideal. Caraco's critique of these societal structures, such as politics and religion, reflects his belief that they are fundamentally hollow. While these systems may provide a temporary sense of security or stability, they do not address the fundamental issue of human existence, the awareness of our own mortality and the ultimate meaninglessness of life. Far from solving the problem of chaos, these systems mask it and, in doing so, create a false sense of control. Caraco argues that the more these systems are strengthened and institutionalized, the more they mask the chaos at the heart of existence. They create an illusion of stability, which, in turn, stifles a deeper understanding of the true nature of life. One of the clearest ways Caraco illustrates this is through his criticism of war and violence. Throughout history, societies have attempted to impose control through conflict, often framing war as a necessary evil or a form of order. Caraco, however, sees war as one of the most glaring examples of how chaos is not only inevitable but actively nurtured by human systems. War, in his view, is not a breakdown of civilization but a natural outgrowth of the underlying chaos that defines human existence. The pursuit of order and stability through war only serves to deepen the chaos, leading to cycles of destruction and rebirth that ultimately undermine any illusion of peace. Another key aspect of Caraco's understanding of chaos is the way it is deeply tied to the concept of fear. Fear, for Caraco, is one of the primary emotional responses to the chaotic nature of existence. We fear the unknown, the uncontrollable, and the inevitable, which is why we constantly seek to impose structures and systems that promise to make the world more predictable. This fear, however, is not something that can be overcome through rational thought or social systems. Rather, it is a primal response to the existential reality of life. For Caraco, this fear is not only a personal experience but a collective one, shared by humanity as a whole. It is this shared fear of chaos that drives many of the destructive behaviors we see in the world. From the rise of authoritarian governments to the persistence of violence and conflict, Caraco's view on fear and chaos also leads him to criticize the conventional religious and philosophical systems that seek to provide comfort in the face of existential uncertainty. Religion, in his view, is one of the primary tools used by society to distract from the chaos of life. It provides a comforting narrative of divine order and meaning. But this narrative, according to Caraco, is fundamentally a lie. The idea that there is a divine purpose to human existence, or that there is an afterlife that provides ultimate meaning, is, for Caraco, an illusion. These beliefs serve only to mask the chaos of existence, preventing individuals from confronting the harsh reality of life as it truly is. This critique is in line with his broader existential philosophy, which asserts that true freedom comes not from clinging to illusions or seeking refuge in artificial systems, but from accepting the chaos of existence as an inescapable part of the human condition. By confronting this chaos directly, without the comforting distractions of societal structures or religious dogma, Caraco believes individuals can attain a deeper, more authentic understanding of their lives. This does not, however, mean that one should embrace chaos in a romanticized or idealized way. Rather, Caraco suggests that we must recognize it as an integral part of our existence. And in doing so, we may achieve a form of freedom that is not dependent on the illusory promises of external systems. One of the most striking aspects of Caraco's philosophy is the way in which he links chaos to a fundamental critique of human civilization. Rather than seeing civilization as a triumph of human reason and order, Caraco views it as a sophisticated system designed to manage and disguise the chaos that lies at the heart of existence. Far from solving the problems of life, civilization, in Caraco's eyes, merely deepens them. The more we build systems to control life, the more we are forced to confront the limitations of those systems. Ultimately, these systems will collapse, and the chaos will reassert itself, often in even more destructive forms. This cyclical nature of chaos, where it is both suppressed and perpetuated by human systems, is one of the most disturbing aspects of Caraco's philosophy. The more we try to suppress chaos through politics, religion, or social order, the more we are likely to provoke new forms of it. In this sense, Caraco's philosophy presents a view of human existence that is both tragic and profound. We are trapped in a perpetual struggle against a force that cannot be controlled, and yet we cannot escape our desire to impose order on it. This tension, according to Caraco, is what defines the human condition. Ultimately, Caraco's ideas about chaos challenge us to rethink our assumptions about life, order, and meaning. In a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable, we must ask ourselves whether the systems we rely on to bring order to our lives are really providing us with the answers we seek. Or, perhaps, as Caraco suggests, they are merely distractions, illusionary attempts to mask the fundamental chaos that defines both life and the universe. By confronting chaos directly, rather than trying to suppress or control it, Caraco believes we may gain a deeper understanding of what it truly means to be human. Albert Caraco's exploration of the paradox between order and chaos provides a profound insight into the human condition, capturing the inevitable tension between our desire for structure and the inescapable reality of disorder. For Caraco, the search for order in a chaotic world is not merely a futile endeavor. It is a paradox that defines the very nature of human existence. This paradox shapes not only the course of human history, but also our personal lives, as we strive to create meaning in a universe that resists all attempts at control. His theory suggests that the more humanity attempts to impose order, the more it inadvertently gives rise to new forms of chaos, thus perpetuating a never-ending cycle of conflict and instability. At the core of Caraco's philosophy is the belief that humanity's struggle for order in a disordered world is, in itself, a source of chaos. The very systems we create to bring stability, political, religious, economic, inevitably fail to address the deeper, inherent chaos of existence. These systems may provide temporary relief from the turmoil of life, but in the long run, they only add to the complexity and intensity of the chaos. This is because the search for order in an inherently chaotic world is doomed to fail. The systems we create are ultimately flawed and transient, subject to the same forces of decay and entropy that affect all things. One of the most poignant aspects of Caraco's view is his assertion that the pursuit of order is inherently self-defeating. The more we try to impose structure, the more we create new forms of chaos. For instance, the formation of governments or political systems, though often established with the goal of ensuring stability, can lead to oppression, injustice, and conflict. Political regimes, particularly authoritarian ones, often justify their power in the name of order, but in doing so, they introduce new forms of chaos, such as censorship, violence, and social unrest. This is evident in numerous historical instances, such as the rise of totalitarian regimes, where the quest for order resulted in widespread suffering and the disruption of societal norms. Similarly, the development of economic systems, while intended to regulate resources and ensure prosperity, often exacerbates inequality and creates economic crises. The rise of capitalism, for example, has led to systemic poverty, exploitation, and environmental destruction, forms of chaos that arise directly from the attempts to impose economic order, the pursuit of wealth and stability. driven by capitalist ideologies, has created a cycle of booms and busts, with each attempt to create a stable economic system eventually giving way to crises. The global financial crisis of 2008 is a stark example of how economic systems designed to promote prosperity can unravel, plunging societies into chaos and exposing the deep vulnerabilities of the system. Caraco's critique extends beyond the political and economic realms to include religion and social structures. Religion, according to Caraco, often serves as a tool for managing the chaos of existence. While it offers a comforting narrative of divine order, it does little to address the fundamental disorder of life. Religious institutions, by promising a higher meaning or purpose, distract individuals from confronting the chaotic and meaningless nature of existence. Yet, even religious systems, despite their claims to ultimate truth and order, have been responsible for immense violence, war, and oppression throughout history. The Crusades, Inquisitions, and religious persecutions stand as examples of how the desire for religious order can lead to chaos, exacerbating rather than alleviating human suffering. Social structures, such as the family, also embody this paradox of order and chaos. The family, often seen as the cornerstone of social order, can be a source of profound conflict and chaos. While families are intended to provide love, support, and stability, they are also the breeding grounds for emotional turmoil, dysfunction, and conflict. Caraco suggests that the very act of trying to create a stable, ordered family environment can generate new forms of chaos, particularly when societal pressures and expectations become a driving force. The idea of family as a unit of order is complicated by the reality that it often brings out the worst aspects of human nature: jealousy, resentment, competition, leading to emotional suffering and strife. The paradox of order and chaos is not limited to large societal structures, but is also embedded in the personal lives of individuals. On a personal level, human beings constantly attempt to organize their lives, seeking out routines, careers, relationships, and identities that provide a sense of control and purpose. However, these attempts at personal order often give rise to new forms of chaos. Individuals who strive for perfection or success may find themselves trapped in a cycle of anxiety, dissatisfaction, and existential dread as they confront the futility of their efforts. The search for meaning, which seems like a rational response to a chaotic world, often leads individuals to confront the deeper, more troubling realization that meaning itself is elusive and perhaps unattainable. A prime example of this paradox can be seen in the way societies react to crises. When disaster strikes, whether in the form of a natural catastrophe, an economic collapse, or a political revolution, there is an immediate drive to restore order and stability. Governments, organizations, and individuals rally together to rebuild and restore normalcy. Yet, in the process of rebuilding, new forms of chaos often emerge. Political revolutions, for instance, often arise from a desire to overthrow corrupt or oppressive systems. However, these revolutions often give way to new forms of tyranny, violence, and instability. The Russian Revolution of 1917, for example, was initially a movement to bring justice and equality, but it ultimately led to the rise of Stalinism, a regime marked by terror, purges, and mass suffering. Similarly, economic crises, such as the Great Depression or the global financial crisis of 2008, illustrate how attempts to restore economic order can lead to further dislocation and turmoil. After each crisis, there is a push to create new systems of regulation and oversight, designed to prevent future collapses. However, these attempts often fail to address the deeper structural issues in the system, and new crises emerge. The result is a cycle of boom and bust, with each attempt to stabilize the system resulting in a deeper sense of instability. Caraco's philosophy highlights the cyclical nature of the paradox between order and chaos. Every effort to impose order, whether through political institutions, economic policies, or personal decisions, inevitably gives rise to new forms of disorder. The more we try to create a stable, predictable world, the more we encounter the underlying chaos that defines human existence. This is a deeply existential perspective, one that challenges the conventional wisdom that human progress is defined by the ability to bring order to the world. Instead, Caraco's view suggests that order and chaos are inseparable, two sides of the same coin, constantly interacting in a dynamic and unpredictable relationship. In Caraco's view, this paradox is not something to be overcome, but something to be embraced. The recognition of the inevitability of chaos is, in itself, a form of liberation. By acknowledging that we cannot control or suppress the chaos of life, we free ourselves from the illusion that order is something we can attain. Instead of seeking to eliminate chaos, Caraco advocates for a radical acceptance of it, seeing it not as an obstacle, but as an essential part of the human experience. In this way, chaos becomes not just a destructive force, but a source of creative potential, a reminder that life is always in flux, always unpredictable, and always open to transformation. The paradox between order and chaos is not simply a philosophical concept for Caraco. It is a lived reality. His philosophy forces us to confront the limits of our control and the inherent uncertainty of existence. It asks us to reconsider the way we structure our societies, our economies, and our personal lives. Rather than seeking to eliminate chaos, we must learn to live with it, accepting that it is an integral part of our journey as human beings. By doing so, we can begin to transcend the false dichotomy between order and chaos, recognizing that both are essential aspects of the same fundamental experience. Albert Caraco's reflections on reproduction and its role in perpetuating the cycle of suffering form one of the most thought-provoking and controversial aspects of his philosophy. For Caraco, the act of reproduction is not a noble or hopeful endeavor, but rather an extension of the chaos and suffering inherent in human existence. His perspective challenges the commonly accepted view that reproduction is an essential and natural part of life, something to be celebrated and pursued. Instead, Caraco argues that bringing new life into the world is essentially an act of perpetuating pain, hardship, and ultimately death. Reproduction, in his eyes, is not a renewal or progression, but a cyclical trap that ensures the continuation of suffering across generations. From the moment a child is born, Caraco suggests, they are thrust into a world of suffering, of struggles and failures that seem to have no inherent purpose or meaning. In this view, the life of every individual is marked by an unbroken sequence of physical, emotional, and existential turmoil. The pain of living, according to Caraco, is inescapable and universal. It is not merely personal suffering, but a cosmic and unavoidable fact of existence. For Caraco, the very act of birth ensures that each individual will eventually face loss, failure, and death. There is no escape from the inherent suffering that life brings. Rather, every life becomes a repetition of the same existential trials faced by countless others throughout history. This bleak outlook on reproduction is tied to Caraco's broader critique of civilization and human existence. He sees the human condition as a continual process of grappling with chaos, an endless cycle of trying to impose meaning and order onto a world that offers neither. Reproduction, in this context, is not a means of preserving life or sustaining human progress. Instead, it is a means of ensuring that the chaos of existence will continue. Caraco's critique of reproduction comes from his belief that human existence is inherently flawed and meaningless. By bringing children into this world, we are only prolonging the suffering, trapping them in the same endless cycle of disorder and pain. Reproduction, Caraco argues, is often romanticized or idealized as a natural expression of life's continuity. It is seen as a way to contribute to the future or leave behind a legacy. Yet, in Caraco's view, this very impulse to create new life is a form of denial. To bring a child into the world is to impose on them the same existential weight of suffering that all previous generations have endured. Each new life becomes another instance of human existence subjected to the same cycle of disorder, decay, and death. In this way, reproduction is not an act of creation but a mechanism of perpetuation, an act that ensures that suffering will continue, even as it promises nothing more than an inevitable end. Caraco's rejection of reproduction is not merely a personal or moral stance. It is rooted in his understanding of human nature and the world itself. He sees human beings as creatures caught in an inescapable web of pain and suffering. The impulse to create life, while natural, is ultimately futile because it does nothing to address the root causes of human anguish. The cycles of life and death that we experience are part of a larger, cosmic pattern that transcends individual lives and generations. In this way, reproduction becomes an act of complicity in the perpetuation of suffering. Far from being a solution to human misery, it is merely a way of continuing the suffering that is an inextricable part of the human experience. This view of reproduction as a cycle of suffering also links to Caraco's broader critique of societal structures. He believes that human society is built on illusion systems and ideologies that promise order, progress, and meaning but ultimately fail to provide any lasting relief from suffering. For Caraco, the institutions of civilization, whether political, economic, or religious, are not designed to alleviate the suffering of human beings. Instead, they perpetuate it. The act of reproduction, under these circumstances, only adds to the already existing chaos. Children born into these systems will inevitably face the same struggles, the same search for meaning in a world that offers none, and ultimately, the same confrontation with death. One of the most striking aspects of Caraco's view is the way in which he reframes reproduction as an ethical and philosophical question. Rather than seeing the act of having children as a personal or familial decision, he suggests that it is an existential dilemma. Is it ethical to bring new life into a world that seems designed for suffering? What responsibility do we have to future generations if we know that they will inevitably face the same hardships that we do? Caraco's rejection of reproduction is grounded in a profound existential question about the value of life and the ethics of bringing someone into a world that offers so little. In comparing Caraco's views with those of other existential thinkers, we can see parallels in the way they all grapple with the futility and pain inherent in human existence. For example, in his exploration of the absurd, Albert Camus argues that life is inherently meaningless and that the human struggle to find meaning is a futile endeavor. However, unlike Caraco, Camus believes that this confrontation with absurdity can lead to a kind of freedom or recognition of the limits of human understanding that allows for a more authentic engagement with life. While Camus accepts the absurdity of life, he also argues that we can find meaning in the struggle itself. In contrast, Caraco's vision is far bleaker. For him, the struggle itself is part of the cycle of suffering, and there is no redemption in the act of living or creating life. This tension between the possibility of freedom and absurdity and the inevitability of suffering in Caraco's philosophy raises important ethical questions about reproduction. If life is indeed a cycle of suffering with no escape, then is it right to continue that cycle by bringing new beings into existence? Caraco seems to suggest that, in a world of infinite chaos, reproduction only serves to reinforce the very suffering it seeks to avoid. By extending the cycle of existence, we create more opportunities for pain and failure. From this perspective, the ethical act may not be the creation of life, but rather the acceptance of the inherent suffering of existence and the refusal to perpetuate it. Reproduction, as Caraco frames it, is not merely about the continuation of biological life. It is about perpetuating the conditions that lead to suffering. Each generation faces the same existential questions and struggles, and each new life born into this world is destined to confront the same pain, loss, and eventual death. The desire to create life, from Caraco's perspective, is an act of rebellion against the harsh realities of existence, a refusal to accept the chaotic and meaningless nature of the world. However, this rebellion is ultimately futile, as it only leads to more suffering in the long run. Furthermore, Caraco's philosophy suggests that the act of reproduction is an attempt to impose meaning on a world that resists meaning. In a universe defined by chaos and randomness, the act of creating life is an attempt to inject purpose into a process that is inherently purposeless. Reproduction, therefore, becomes a way of trying to assert control over a world that cannot be controlled. In this sense, Caraco's critique of reproduction is a critique of the very human impulse to seek meaning, stability, and purpose in a world that offers none. This impulse, Caraco argues, only creates more suffering, as it leads us further into the cycle of birth, struggle, and death. Ultimately, Caraco's perspective on reproduction challenges us to confront the deeper questions of existence and ethics. If life is inherently meaningless and suffering is unavoidable, then what does it mean to bring new life into the world? Is it an act of hope? Or is it an act of complicity in the perpetuation of suffering? Caraco's rejection of reproduction is not just a personal or philosophical stance. It is a profound ethical challenge that asks us to reconsider our assumptions about life, death, and the responsibilities we have to future generations. Through his examination of reproduction as a cycle of suffering, Caraco forces us to confront the ultimate question: is it right to bring new life into a world that offers so little? Albert Caraco's view of chaos is one of stark confrontation and profound nihilism. Yet within his bleak interpretation, one could ask whether chaos could indeed offer any possibility for spiritual renewal. This notion of chaos as a potential source of redemption is a question that resonates deeply with Caraco's philosophical stance. His skepticism of social systems, including politics, religion, and family, as vehicles for salvation, frames his outlook on human existence. For Caraco, these constructs of order serve primarily to suppress the innate chaos of life rather than to overcome it. So, the central philosophical query arises: can chaos, in all its destructive and disorienting power, lead to renewal? Or is it merely a cycle of suffering with no hope of transcendence? For Caraco, the very essence of human existence is the confrontation with chaos, an existential battle that no societal framework can shield us from. According to him, the pursuit of meaning, the establishment of order, or even the desire for a better life through religion, politics, or culture is a futile attempt to mask the reality of chaos. Human beings, trapped in this maze of systems, remain unaware that their attempts to escape or mitigate chaos only amplify it in new forms. However, a pivotal question remains: does this encounter with chaos offer any possibility of personal or spiritual transformation? Or are we merely doomed to repeat the same cycles of suffering forever? Caraco's rejection of conventional systems of salvation, those offered by religion, politics, or even family life, points to a larger critique of the human condition. He recognizes the fundamental flaws in these systems, which promise order and purpose but often only deliver disillusionment, violence, and deeper chaos, whether through the religious promise of eternal salvation, the political ideal of social harmony, or the familial expectation of unconditional love and support. All these systems, according to Caraco, fail to address the true nature of human existence, chaos, and in this failure, they foster the very conditions they claim to resolve. However, there is an intriguing tension in Caraco's view. If social systems cannot bring redemption, can the chaos itself offer a form of liberation? This is where the philosophical debate becomes particularly complex. Caraco himself seems to suggest that the chaotic forces of existence are insurmountable, leaving little room for any genuine spiritual or personal rebirth. The best one can hope for, according to Caraco, is a profound awareness of the chaos and an acceptance of it. This acceptance, however, is not a triumphant resolution but a grim recognition of the unchangeable nature of existence. There is no promise of transcendence in Caraco's view, only the realization that life, in all its turmoil and disarray, cannot be controlled or made meaningful through the usual constructs of society. This skepticism about any redemptive quality in chaos sharply contrasts with the ideas of other philosophers who have embraced chaos in a more positive light. Friedrich Nietzsche, for instance, offers a radically different approach to the relationship between chaos and renewal. Nietzsche's philosophy posits that chaos, especially in the form of suffering, disorder, and conflict, can be a source of immense creative power. Nietzsche famously advocated for the embrace of chaos and struggle, suggesting that it is precisely in the chaotic, disordered elements of life that individuals find their highest potential for growth and transformation. For Nietzsche, the notion of the will to power is central. whereby the individual can transcend the limitations imposed by social norms and find their own path through the chaos of existence. In Nietzsche's framework, chaos is not an external force to be feared or avoided, but an internal energy that, when harnessed, can lead to the creation of new values, new meaning, and ultimately a form of personal redemption. By confronting chaos directly, by engaging with the disorder of the world rather than retreating from it, Nietzsche believed individuals could experience a kind of rebirth, what he called the Übermensch, or Overman, a higher type of human being who transcends the herd mentality and creates their own destiny. This is a profound departure from Caraco's perspective, where chaos is something inherently destructive, an unyielding force that has no transformative potential beyond its perpetual ability to destroy. The contrast between Caraco and Nietzsche becomes even clearer when considering their different attitudes toward the role of suffering in human life. Nietzsche views suffering not as something to be avoided, but as a necessary catalyst for growth. Suffering, for Nietzsche, is not an empty, meaningless pain. Rather, it is the crucible through which new forms of strength, creativity, and insight emerge. In contrast, Caraco's view of suffering is far more negative. Suffering, for him, is inescapable and pervasive, and it offers no potential for growth or redemption. The chaos that inflicts suffering in Caraco's view is cyclical and unchanging. There is no release from it, no opportunity for transcendence. Yet, despite this stark difference in philosophy, both thinkers acknowledge the profound role that chaos plays in shaping human existence. Where Nietzsche sees chaos as the soil for new growth and creativity, Caraco sees it as an inevitable force that will ultimately destroy all attempts to create order or meaning. Both views acknowledge chaos as an essential element of the human condition, but they diverge in their belief in whether it offers any possibility of redemption or spiritual renewal. In Caraco's perspective, it is important to recognize that chaos does not simply represent an external force, but a fundamental aspect of the human psyche. The individual, faced with the realization of life's inherent meaninglessness, turns to external systems, religion, politics, family as attempts to impose some kind of order or meaning. These systems, however, only serve to create illusions, hiding the chaos that lies at the heart of existence. The existential recognition of this chaos, for Caraco, does not lead to redemption but to despair. The only form of liberation is the awareness that chaos cannot be overcome and must be accepted. Yet, despite Caraco's pessimistic view, there is a certain philosophical richness in his thinking. The recognition of chaos, while unsettling, offers a powerful opportunity for self-awareness and clarity. In acknowledging the futility of societal systems and the inevitable nature of suffering, individuals may find a kind of freedom, an existential freedom from the illusions that bind them. Caraco's bleak vision of existence is not necessarily one of hopelessness, but a call to confront the inherent contradictions of life and to face chaos not as an enemy to be defeated, but as an unavoidable force that shapes our reality. In contrast, Nietzsche's vision of chaos as a force for creative transformation allows for a more hopeful engagement with the world. Nietzsche does not deny the chaos of existence, but suggests that, through struggle and suffering, individuals can create their own meaning and shape their own futures. While Caraco sees chaos as a force that perpetuates suffering, Nietzsche views it as a raw material from which individuals can forge their own identities, values, and destinies. This contrast between the philosophies of Caraco and Nietzsche highlights the broader philosophical question of whether chaos can lead to renewal. For Caraco, the idea of redemption through chaos is elusive, if not impossible. The realization that chaos cannot be overcome leads only to resignation, not renewal. In Nietzsche's view, on the other hand, chaos is something to be embraced and harnessed to challenge that, when met with strength and creativity, can lead to profound personal transformation. In exploring the idea of chaos as a potential source of renewal, one must also consider the ways in which chaos can provide opportunities for individuals to break free from the confines of societal expectations and create new forms of meaning. While Caraco's view is focused on the destructive aspects of chaos, Nietzsche's philosophy suggests that chaos offers a space for freedom from the constraints of established systems and the possibility of creating a new path forward. Ultimately, the question of whether chaos can lead to redemption is not one that can be answered definitively. For Caraco, chaos is an inescapable, destructive force that offers no hope of spiritual renewal. For Nietzsche, however, chaos is a necessary condition for the creation of meaning and personal growth. The philosophical challenge, then, is not to deny the reality of chaos, but to determine how we respond to it. Whether we view it as an obstacle to overcome or a catalyst for transformation depends on our perspective, and this perspective shapes the way we engage with life itself. In either case, chaos is not a force that can be avoided, but one that must be confronted. The way we confront it, and the meaning we extract from it, may define our understanding of existence itself. Albert Caraco's philosophy centers on the inescapable duality of life and chaos, an interplay that forms the crux of his worldview. Caraco's examination of the human condition is one of stark realism and deep pessimism. For him, life is inherently entangled with chaos, and this chaotic existence is the driving force behind human suffering, search for meaning, and inevitable disillusionment. Throughout his writings, Caraco critiques the social systems, religion, politics, and family that humans create in an attempt to escape or mitigate the overwhelming forces of chaos. Yet, as he argues, these constructs are merely temporary illusions, providing no real refuge from the ceaseless turbulence that characterizes human existence. In this sense, Caraco's philosophy presents a grim but necessary truth. There is no escape from chaos, and any attempt to impose order on it will only intensify its presence in different forms. Life, according to Caraco, is not a meaningful journey but rather a cycle of suffering, marked by futile attempts to impose structure on an inherently disordered world. He sees existence as a forced condition, one that we did not choose, and that offers no inherent meaning or purpose. The more humans seek to find order through societal norms or religious frameworks, the more they confront the futility of their efforts. These efforts, while seemingly aimed at providing security and stability, only create more complex layers of chaos. Societies, cultures, and religions may present themselves as offering solutions, but in Caraco's view, they only serve to mask the chaos for a brief time before it erupts again, often in more destructive ways. Central to Caraco's thought is the idea that chaos is not merely a disorderly event or temporary disruption, but the very fabric of existence itself. Chaos is not an anomaly, it is the rule. In this sense, Caraco challenges the traditional notion that life can be understood in terms of predictable patterns or rational structures. He sees the world as fundamentally irrational, and humanity's struggle to understand it through systems of control, whether political, religious, or philosophical, is ultimately futile. These systems do not tame chaos. They only provide temporary distractions that mask its true nature. One of the most significant elements of Caraco's critique is the relationship between life, suffering, and the quest for meaning. He views the search for meaning as an ongoing process of grappling with the chaos that permeates every aspect of existence. Unlike existentialist philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre or Albert Camus, who contend that individuals can find meaning in a meaningless world, Caraco remains unconvinced that such a meaning can ever be found. To him, any attempt to reconcile chaos with meaning only leads to more suffering. The pursuit of meaning is not a noble or heroic endeavor, but rather a desperate and fruitless attempt to escape the reality of life's inherent disorder. However, while Caraco's worldview may seem bleak, it presents a profound and unsettling insight into the human experience. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that our lives, despite our best efforts, are not within our control. In seeking order, humans only deepen their entanglement in chaos. But paradoxically, this very awareness of chaos, the realization that chaos cannot be defeated or escaped, may offer a form of freedom. For Caraco, freedom does not come from the illusion of control, nor from the hope of achieving meaning. Instead, true freedom comes from embracing chaos, acknowledging its presence, and accepting it as the defining feature of existence. The question that arises from Caraco's philosophy is whether it is possible to rebuild society or reform human existence in such a way that we can escape the cyclical trap between order and chaos. Can we truly create systems that allow us to live harmoniously without inevitably falling back into the same patterns of destruction and disorder? Caraco's work suggests that this is unlikely, as the forces of chaos are deeply embedded in the fabric of reality. The search for order, in his view, is nothing more than a continuous cycle that repeats itself across generations, never reaching a permanent resolution. At the heart of Caraco's philosophy is a fundamental paradox. While he believes that humans cannot escape chaos, he also proposes that recognizing this truth might offer a form of liberation. To live without illusions, to face the chaos of existence head-on, may free individuals from the burdens of false hope and misguided attempts at control. In this sense, Caraco offers a form of existential freedom that comes not from the creation of systems that order our lives, but from the acceptance of the fundamental chaos that defines them. This existential freedom, however, comes at a great cost. It is the freedom of resignation, of acknowledging that life will never be neat, controlled, or predictable, but that in this very disorder lies the essence of human existence. The question that looms large in Caraco's philosophy is whether such a worldview leaves room for redemption. If the human condition is so deeply intertwined with chaos, can there be any hope for renewal or spiritual growth? While Caraco does not offer a clear answer to this question, he does suggest that redemption, if it exists at all, will not come through societal systems or external sources of meaning. Instead, redemption may come from within, from the individual's capacity to confront the chaos of existence without flinching, to accept it without seeking to control or explain it. In considering the implications of Caraco's philosophy, we are left with a profound challenge. Can we reconcile the tension between our desire for order and the inescapable presence of chaos in our lives? Are we doomed to perpetually repeat the same patterns, endlessly searching for meaning in a meaningless world? Or can we find a way to live in harmony with the chaos, to embrace it as an essential aspect of our existence? Caraco's writings suggest that the answer lies not in the creation of new systems or structures that promise to free us from chaos, but in the acceptance of chaos itself as the only true reality. It is through this acceptance that we may find the kind of freedom that allows us to live fully, authentically, and without illusion. Ultimately, Caraco's philosophy challenges us to rethink our assumptions about life, meaning, and order. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that chaos is an inextricable part of the human experience, and that any attempt to escape it will only deepen our suffering. In a world where chaos is the only constant, the true challenge lies in how we respond to it. Will we continue to search for order in a disordered world? Or will we learn to embrace the chaos and live fully in its midst? This is the question that Caraco's philosophy leaves us to ponder, one that invites us to reflect deeply on our place in the universe and our relationship with the forces that govern our existence. The central challenge that Caraco leaves us with is not to solve the paradox of life and chaos, but to learn how to live within it. In the absence of any clear solution, he asks us to confront the reality of chaos, to see it for what it truly is, and to find meaning not in the illusion of order, but in the acceptance of the disorder that surrounds us. In this acceptance, Caraco suggests, we may find a deeper understanding of what it means to be human, and perhaps even a form of redemption in the very chaos that threatens to destroy us. So, what now? Can we ever escape this endless cycle of chaos? Or is it our ultimate fate to remain trapped in its grasp forever? As we've seen today, Albert Caraco's philosophy offers no comforting answers. Instead, it forces us to confront the paradox at the heart of human existence, that life is simultaneously our greatest achievement and our greatest trap. It challenges us to let go of the illusions that we've built around society, religion, and culture, and face the raw, disorienting truth about the world we live in. The chaos isn't something we can conquer, it's something we must accept. But is there freedom in this acceptance? Can we find redemption not through order, but by embracing the disorder itself? These are the questions Caraco leaves us to grapple with. And while the answers may not be easy to find, the journey itself is one that demands deep reflection and personal transformation. But I want to hear from you. What do you think? Can chaos truly lead to renewal? Or are we doomed to repeat the same mistakes over and over again? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to hear your perspective. Before you go, if you found this video insightful or challenging, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you're feeling especially generous today, consider supporting the channel by clicking the super thanks button. Every little bit helps us continue creating content that pushes the boundaries of thought. Thank you for watching. And remember, sometimes the greatest insights come from confronting the chaos, not running from it. See you in the next one.